There is something happening in your life right now that no one has been able to explain to you. Not your doctor, not your closest friend, not even the part of you that lies awake at 3 in the morning trying to make sense of it all. You have done everything right. You have tried. You have prayed. You have worked and waited and hoped. And still, something invisible keeps holding the door closed just before you reach it. Like a force you cannot name, standing between you and the life you know. Deep in your bones, you were meant to live. What if the obstacle is not out there? What if it never was? What if the thing standing between you and everything you desire is something you have been carrying inside your own name? Written in water, held in silence, waiting to be released. Stay with me, because what I am about to share with you is not a theory, it is not a philosophy, it is something the ancient masters practiced long before the modern world taught us to distrust what we cannot immediately measure. I want to take you back to a moment I have never spoken about publicly. Many years ago, I was sitting beside an old Tibetan teacher, a man who had spent 40 years in near total silence, living at a monastery perched so high in the mountains that clouds would pass through the windows like quiet visitors. He rarely spoke. When he did, you learned to write nothing down because the words were not meant for paper. They were meant for the place inside you that already knows things your mind has not yet accepted. That evening, he handed me a small clay bowl filled with water. He had placed salt in it earlier, not ceremoniously, just quietly, the way you do something you have done 10,000 times before. He looked at me and said one thing. He said, "What you hold in silence, the water holds for you." I did not understand it fully then, but I carried it, the way you carry a stone in your pocket without knowing why, until the day you reach into your coat and realize it has been warming in your hand the whole journey. What he meant, I eventually understood, was this. There are things inside us, intentions, desires, wounds, longings, that we cannot fully hold in our conscious mind. They are too large, too layered, too tangled in the stories we have told ourselves about why we cannot have them. And water, in the understanding of the ancient traditions, is not a passive element. It is a living field, a receiver, a carrier of what the human soul deposits into it. You may have noticed something without ever naming it, that a glass of water sitting in a tense room feels different from one sitting in a place of prayer. That a home where people argue often carries a heaviness in the air that even visitors can sense without knowing why. That certain spaces, certain rivers, certain oceans, certain mountain springs make you feel, the moment you arrive, that something in you is being restored. This is not imagination. Across cultures, across centuries, across spiritual traditions that never spoke the same language and never shared the same land, from the Indian healers to the Shinto priests of Japan, from the Cherokee medicine keepers to the Sufi mystics of Persia, water was treated as something sacred. Not metaphorically, literally. They all arrived independently at the same understanding. Water remembers. Water responds. Water transforms. And salt, the element that the earth has carried since before the first human being drew breath. Salt has been used in every major spiritual tradition on this planet as a purifier, a protector, a dissolver of what should not remain. Before there were words for energy, there was salt. Before there were words for spiritual clearing, there was salt. Civilizations who never met each other, who lived on opposite ends of the earth, all reached for the same thing when they needed to cleanse what was invisible and heavy. There is a reason for that, and that reason lives in what you are about to do. If this teaching is already speaking to something inside you, if you feel that this moment is not accidental, that something led you here, I want to invite you to do one thing right now. Write in the comments the single word that represents what you most want to call into your life. prosperity, peace, healing, love, clarity, abundance. Whatever word rises first in your chest, that is the one. Declare it here in this community because an intention spoken openly carries a frequency that a silent wish cannot. Now, before I walk you through this practice, I need to say something that most people skip over, something that changes everything about whether this works for you or not. The ritual itself is simple. It always has been. The ancient practices that carried the most power were never complicated. They were precise. There is a difference. Complicated means many steps, many tools, many distractions for the ego to hide behind. Precise means every element present for a specific reason, every gesture made with full awareness, every breath held with intention. What makes this practice profound is not the water, not the salt, not even the paper with your name written on it. It is the quality of your presence when you do it. There is an old teaching I received from a monk who had studied in both the Zen tradition and the Vedic lineage, a rare combination and a rare man. He told me that most people approach ritual the way they approach a vending machine. They put something in and wait for something to come out. They remain unchanged. They remain observers. But a true ritual, he said, is not a transaction. It is a transformation. You do not come to the water to hand something over and walk away. You come to the water to become the kind of person who can receive what they are asking for. That is the real alchemy. Let me walk you through what this practice looks like when it is done with full presence. Begin with a glass vessel, transparent if you have one. There is a reason the masters prefer transparent containers, not for aesthetics, but because you are choosing at the start of this practice to have no hidden places. You are choosing to be seen by the universe, by yourself, fully. Fill it with clean water, water that is as close to its natural state as possible, filtered or from a natural source. Not water that has traveled through old pipes and industrial systems. You are creating a field, and fields respond to the quality of what you bring to them. Now add the salt, sea salt if you have it. Coarse is fine. Add it slowly, with your eyes open, watching it meet the water. Do not rush this. There is something that happens in those first moments of contact. The salt beginning to give itself over to the water beginning to receive the salt. That is already the beginning of the ritual. You are witnessing dissolution, the releasing of one form in order to become something larger. Stir it gently, clockwise if you feel drawn to it. The direction of invitation, the direction of gathering, the direction of drawing toward center rather than pushing away. Take a piece of white paper and a pen that writes dark enough to be clear. And now write your name. I want to pause here because this moment, this small, seemingly ordinary act of writing your name is far more significant than it appears. Your name is not just a label someone gave you before they truly knew you. Your name is a container. It holds your entire energetic history. Every time it has been spoken in love, in worry, in prayer. Every time someone called it out in a crowd and your whole body turned before your mind even processed the sound. Every victory that belongs to you. Every wound that shaped you. Every version of yourself that tried and fell and rose again. When you write your name, you are not making a symbol. You are summoning yourself. And below your name, write what you are ready to receive. Not what you think you should want. Not the polished version that sounds reasonable to other people. What you actually want. What your soul has been quietly holding in the dark for months, maybe for years. Peace that lasts. Abundance that doesn't run out. Health that lets you live fully. Love that is steady and real. Clarity about what comes next. Write it as if it already exists. Not as a wish written in desperation, as a recognition, as someone reading back aloud what the universe has already decided and what you are finally ready to accept. Before the paper meets the water, be still. Close your eyes. Let 3 breaths move through you slowly. Not controlled breathing, just breathing. The kind that happens when the body finally feels safe enough to soften. With each exhale, I want you to release something specific. With the first, release the doubt. The part of you that has been burned before and learned to protect itself by not hoping too loudly. With the second, release the exhaustion. The deep tiredness that comes not from lack of sleep, but from carrying too much for too long without anyone noticing the weight. With the third, release the belief that this is not for you. Because that belief, that invisible, inherited, deeply buried belief that the good things belong to other people, is the most common energetic barrier I have seen in all my years of working with people in transformation. Not lack of faith, not lack of effort, the quiet, corrosive conviction that somehow you are the exception to grace. You are not. The teachings of the ancient traditions are unanimous on this. Not unanimous in theory, unanimous in practice, across every lineage, every tradition, every culture that ever sat in stillness long enough to hear something true. You are not here to witness abundance from a distance. You are here to inhabit it. Now, place the paper in the water. Watch it. Notice how the water immediately begins to move toward it. How the paper receives the water at its edges first, slowly, then more fully. How the ink begins to breathe differently in the presence of the salt water around it. Watch your name. Watch what you have declared entering that field. This is not metaphor. This is the visible expression of something moving in the invisible. Hold the container in both hands if you feel called to. The warmth of your hands against the glass adds something, your living field, your body's own electromagnetic presence, joining the intention you have set. Stay here for a few minutes, not performing, not monitoring, just present. If a feeling rises, gratitude, grief, relief, an unexpected rush of emotion, do not suppress it. That is not interference, that is activation. Something that needed to move is moving. Something that has been held too tightly for too long is beginning to release. Let it. If this teaching is landing in a deep place, if something in you has been quietly aching for exactly this kind of guidance, I want you to consider joining this community by subscribing to the channel. Not as a transaction, as a commitment to yourself. Every time you return here, you are choosing one more time to take your own evolution seriously. And that choice, repeated, renewed, never abandoned, is exactly what transformation is made of. Hit the bell as well so you never miss what comes next. Because what is coming on this channel was designed for people exactly like you. People who are ready for more than surface answers. Place the vessel somewhere quiet, somewhere it will not be disturbed. Somewhere the energy of the space is relatively clean, not a high traffic area, not beside the television, not in the center of noise and movement. If it feels right, you can place it near a window where natural light can reach it. Light is not decorative in this context. In the understanding of many ancient traditions, natural light carries an organizing frequency. It encourages coherence. Cover it lightly if you like. And then, this is the part that separates those who practice from those who merely perform. Let it go. Letting go is not indifference. It is not passivity. It is the highest spiritual skill there is, and it is the one that the modern world makes the most difficult. Because we have been trained to believe that effort and control and constant attention are the proof of care. That if you want something badly enough, you must grip it hard enough. But the masters knew the opposite to be true. The tightest grip creates the most resistance. The open hand receives what the clenched fist can never hold. Set your intention. Place your name in the water. And then trust the process enough to step away from it. Live your day. Be present to what is in front of you. Allow the field you have created to do what fields do. Work in the background, beneath the surface, in the invisible layers of reality that do not require your supervision to function. Within 24 to 48 hours, return to the vessel. You may notice something in yourself during this period, a lightness you did not expect, a clarity that rises in the middle of a routine moment, a sudden knowing about a decision you have been postponing, a dream that leaves you with a feeling of peace more than an image to decode. Or you may notice the opposite, a surfacing of something heavy, emotions with no clear source, a wave of doubt or sadness or old anger moving through you without explanation. Do not fear this. Do not interpret it as failure. In the Tibetan healing arts, there is a concept that the closest translation I can offer in English is the clearing before the clearing. Before the space can receive something new, what has occupied that space must come to the surface and leave. The discomfort, when it comes, is not the wound reopening. It is the wound finally completing what it started. It is the end of something, not the beginning of a problem. Move through it gently, breathe through it, do not judge it, do not narrate it into a story about why things never work out for you. It is simply movement, and movement in the spiritual body is always a sign of life. When you are ready to close the ritual, do so with the same intentionality with which you opened it. Remove what remains of the paper from the water. Hold the vessel for a moment before you empty it, and speak, aloud or in the quiet of your mind, something simple. Not a formula, something true, something that comes from the place inside you that has been paying attention through this whole process. Perhaps I release this into the hands of something larger than my worry. I trust what has been moved. I am open. Then pour the water into the earth if you can. A garden, a plant, the base of a tree. The earth does not discard what the water carries. It receives it, transforms it, incorporates it into a cycle you cannot see but can trust. This closing, this returning of the water to the ground, is the completion of the circle. The intention leaves you, enters the field of the water, enters the field of the earth, and becomes part of the larger movement of life that is always, always working on your behalf, even in the seasons when you cannot feel it. In the days that follow, pay attention differently, not with urgency, with a quiet alertness of someone who knows they are being answered and is simply waiting to recognize the form the answer takes. The universe does not respond in straight lines. It responds in the language of synchronicity. The conversation that turns unexpectedly toward exactly what you needed to hear. The opportunity that arrives through a door you were not watching. The person who reaches out after years of silence with something in their hands that looks, somehow, exactly like the thing you wrote on that piece of paper. These are not coincidences. A teacher I loved deeply used to say that coincidence is the universe's preferred method of remaining anonymous. When these moments arrive, acknowledge them, quietly, internally, with the sincerity of someone who recognizes a gift. Say thank you before the gift is fully unwrapped. Because gratitude, in the energetic sense, is not a response to receiving. It is the frequency that makes receiving possible. The person who is grateful in advance is already living inside abundance, and the field around a person who lives inside abundance becomes magnetic. Things begin to find their way there because that is where they belong. There is something I want to leave you with before this teaching closes. Something I have seen proven, quietly, in the lives of people who commit to this kind of work. Not once, not dramatically, but steadily, over time, in the accumulated weight of many small moments of intention honored. The life you want is not far away. It is not being withheld from you as punishment for your past. It is not reserved for people who were born into easier circumstances, or who made fewer mistakes, or who managed to believe without ever doubting. It is as close as the next quiet moment in which you choose, deliberately, consciously, without apology, to treat yourself as someone worthy of what you are asking for. That is what this ritual does. Not because the salt is magic, not because the water has supernatural powers that override the laws of reality, but because every time you sit down in stillness and place your name in that water, you are practicing the most countercultural act available to a person in the modern world. You are saying, I matter. My desires matter. My life is not an accident. The things I long for are not delusions. I am not too late. I am not too damaged. I am not too tired. I am here, and I am ready. If this teaching has moved something in you, if you feel in this moment that something shifted even slightly, I want to ask you to do one thing. Write in the comments, I receive with gratitude. Not as a performance, as a declaration. A quiet public act of spiritual courage, naming in front of this community that you are open, that you are choosing to receive, that you are done waiting for permission from the world to step into the abundance that was always yours. And if you know someone, a friend, a family member, someone you love who has been struggling in silence, who has been carrying something heavy without anyone noticing, consider sharing this with them. You may not be able to explain why they need to hear it, but something in you knows. Trust that. You can also support this work with a super thanks or by becoming a channel member for access to exclusive teachings. Every gesture of support keeps these teachings reaching the people who need them most, and there are more of them than you know. I will leave you with something I have carried for a long time. Not a quote from a book, something spoken to me plainly by a man who had practiced simplicity for so long that what remained in him was only what was true. He said, "The water does not ask whether you deserve to be clean. It simply receives you. That is the teaching. Put your name in the salt water. Not because it is magic, but because you are ready to stop treating your own life as something that happens to other people. Because something in you, older than your doubt, deeper than your fear, stronger than the years of waiting, knows that the life you have been carrying in your chest like a quietly folded map is not a fantasy. It is a destination, and you already know the way. The water is ready. The salt is ready. The only thing left is you." I am Monk Orion, and I will be here every time you need to remember what you came here to do.